Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And in today's video we're going to go over the Apostate Report. It's a recent survey conducted by the ex-Muslims of North America, and we're going to go over some of their findings because it's very interesting. Just a disclaimer as well, we are going to be making some assumptions. However, these assumptions are going to be logical, and we're going to come to some conclusions as well throughout. Then I'm going to link a useful video made by Asdullah Ali a couple of years ago, and I do recommend you watch that. But let's get into some of the findings from their survey. Now, according to the ex-Muslims of North America website, it's the first of its kind survey. They're pretty proud of themselves with what they've produced. And also, it's exclusive just to North American ex-Muslims, so people in USA and Canada. Now, this survey was conducted of over 500 people. I'm going to sit here and just assume it's 500 just for the sake of this video, so it makes the numbers easier to break down. By looking at the image on screen, you can see that the people were 23 to 34 years old. That's the majority of people. 65% of people, which if we use number 500, 325 people left Islam between that age range, 23 and 34. Very interesting. Now this is something I would like to focus on. Sect. Majority of people identified as Sunni Muslims. Okay, that's fine. The rest identified as a Shia and other. Now, what constitutes the other? Is it Sufism? What else is it? It could be Qadianis. Now, the ex-Muslims of North America, they should know that Qadianis are not Muslim. Therefore, they should not be included in this study. And I'm going to be generous. I'm just going to sit there and assume that 2% of the people that participated in this survey identified them as Qadianis before. And thus that means if we implement the number 500 and get 2% of it, that 10 people that participated in this survey who identified as Qadianis were not Muslims to begin with, thus do not qualify to be called apostates. Here's something interesting for you guys, and you can form your own opinions on this. 7% of people who were surveyed, so 35 out of 500, only spent days questioning Islam before leaving it. Now personally, I think that's very strange and weird. However, if these people just get on with their lives, these 7%, fine, may Allah guide them back. However, if they then go out and attack Islam, try bring shubahat, which have already been refuted, or arguments, grade school, elementary school arguments, oh, the Quran says fight disbelievers, stuff like that. It just shows to me, at least, and I think other people would agree with me, a lack of intellect and a lack of patience and maturity as well. However, you guys can form your own opinions. I personally find it weird. The 63% figure at the bottom, years, is something which I expect is far more logical to assume. But 7%, I didn't expect that figure to be so high. I want you to have a look at this now because it's very interesting. Let's start with the top left first of all. 31% of people engaged in drinking alcohol all the time before apostatizing from the religion of Islam. 31% of people. In other words, that's 155 people out of the 500 drank alcohol all the time. 17% did it sometimes. And that small little blue one you see in between 31 and 17 is as possible. Then the last one you have when forced. Now, I assume that percentage is made up of peer pressure as well, and that can be stopped by the person themselves. Don't give in to peer pressure. Simple as that. Let's go down a level. Premarital sexual activity. 27% of people did it before apostatizing from the religion of Islam. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Muslims don't do this. We sin. But the thing is, when we sin, we repent to Allah. Here's where differences can be seen, though. Parallels can be drawn between the top left, the one on the right-hand side, and the one on the bottom. Let's start with the bottom. 5% of people didn't pray at all. 5% of people did not pray at all. That's 25 people who didn't pray at all. 21% of people did it when forced, 29% did it sometimes, and 24% did it whenever possible. What does that mean, whenever possible? Does that mean, oh yeah, I can do it today, but I can't do it for another week? Oh yeah, I can only do one today, but I can't do any more for another month. You know, it's very vague, isn't it? Let's total up the percentages. 24%, 29%, 21% and 5%. What do we arrive at? We arrive at 79%. 79% of people who pretty much hardly ever prayed. Didn't pray, rarely prayed, and let's be honest, they couldn't really care less about praying. And for those of you interested in a figure, that's 395 people out of the 500 surveyed who pretty much couldn't care less about praying. But here is where things just don't add up. Look on the right hand side. 53% of people attended the masjid on a regular basis. Well, we've just identified that 395 people, 79% of people couldn't care less about praying. But 53% attended mosque on a regular basis, thus indicating that they were going to the mosque all the time. And what do you go to the mosque to do? To go and pray? Now, to me, that simply just doesn't add up at all. How can you have 79% of people who couldn't care less about praying, but then 53% of people from the same survey group who attended mosque on a regular basis? Can you guys think how that is logical? If you think it's logical and you have an explanation, comment it below. Now let's tie all this back to the top left. Here is what I think happened to these people. I personally think that as they became disconnected with their religion and they stopped praying and couldn't care less about praying, they engaged in acts such as premarital sex and alcohol consumption. They were peer pressured into it initially, but then they kept doing it and they kept doing it and they kept doing it to the point where they kept following their whims and desires. They didn't really care about their religion anymore and they wanted to focus purely on that. They are entranced by the Western delusion, the Western way of life, of getting drunk, having sex. That's what they revolve around. That's what life is to them. That's what it seems like to me anyway. And I believe that this statistic over here, and the one I'm going to show you after this, further prove this conclusion. The majority of people identified themselves as immigrants. What countries? Well, if you have a look, majority of them are South Asia. What does this mean? This means countries such as Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, countries where the quality of life isn't very good, where the livelihood isn't very good compared to countries in Europe, you've got the UK, and compared to America. So what I believe happened is that these people migrated to the United States and Canada, and their children, grew up in America. Now, the parents do not speak English fluently, but they can their native language. They also don't have a connection as such with their children, to the point where they know what they're doing, who they're interacting with, who their friends are. And thus their influence on their child begins to disperse. It begins to weaken, begins to dissipate. And then said child is growing up in a completely different environment to what they knew in Pakistan, in India, in Afghanistan. They see these things, alcohol, sex, and they're interested in it. They start divulging in it, and eventually they go down a path, and once they're down it, it's very hard to get out of it. And in the end, I just simply believe they had enough and they preferred that way of life. And I think a lot of ex-Muslims just are closeted ex-Muslims, in a sense that they don't really go around saying, I'm an ex-Muslim, I'm an ex-Muslim. They just left the religion and they get on with their life. And I think these statistics prove it. What we see here is that majority of ex-Muslims, almost 400, hardly prayed, couldn't care less about praying, didn't pray at all. A lot of them engaged in things which are forbidden and major sins, such as zina, sex. And these individuals clearly enjoyed that life, that lifestyle, and didn't like the lifestyle which Islam promotes, which is discipline. And that's what I believe we can see from these statistics. This is the last screenshot I'm going to show you from their report. It basically shows the reasons for their apostasy. And why is this interesting? Well, because as Muslims, this is what affects the people of the West, of America, because it caused them to leave Islam. Thus, this is what you should focus on and you should strengthen, so that you're not affected by it. So, you have to give thanks to ex-Muslims of North America for actually telling us what affects the Muslims in the West, because these people who were Muslims who left Islam, this is what affected them, and this is what as Muslims you can study and you can work on, so that way if somebody comes to you and tries to make you leave Islam and say, what about this, what about that, you know how to answer them. Or if an ex-Muslim comes to you, or somebody who has doubts comes to you, you'll know how to answer them. Because this seems to be, at least from what the ex-Muslims in North America have produced in their Apostate Report, the factors which affect ex-Muslims the most and which cause them to leave the religion of Islam. You know, I've interacted with a few ex-Muslims in the past, and some of them are liars, some of them just, you can tell, are immature, and are struggling in life. Now, what I want Muslims to understand is that not every single ex-Muslim is a liar. Not every single ex-Muslim is disingenuous. You know, it's sad that you've got Apostate Prophet, Infidel Noodle, and all them lot representing the ex-Muslim community and an organisation like the ex-Muslims of North America, because they are dragging down the perception of ex-Muslims. They are what make Muslims think ex-Muslims are clowns, are disingenuous. That's what organisations like that and people like that are doing. I know there are ex-Muslims out there who are genuine. You know, they left Islam because they feel like this wasn't answered and they're struggling. All they want is answers, but they couldn't find those answers, so they felt like they had no choice but to leave the religion. And to them, may Allah help you and guide you. If you have questions and you are sincere, you can drop me an email. You can find my email on my website. And inshallah, I can try and answer it for you, and you come back to the religion of Islam. So that's what I want Muslims to take from this, okay? To first of all understand that not every single ex-Muslim is a disingenuous liar. It's sad that you've got the main ex-Muslims out there giving the rest of the ex-Muslims a bad name, but that's just the way things are, okay? Another thing I want you guys to take from this is the survey itself. You've seen now, and you can go and read the full survey yourself, and, you know, I'll link it for you, go have a read of it. You've seen yourself what's affecting people, what caused them to leave the religion of Islam. You've seen how these people were engaging in premarital sex and alcohol. A lot of them were engaging in it. What does it tell you? That of the 500 people that they surveyed, the vast majority of them weren't even practicing Muslims to begin with. They didn't really care. They cared more about drinking and having sex than actually Islam itself. So in summary, what have we learnt? Not every ex-Muslim is a disingenuous liar. Some are serious. However, it's hard to filter them out, considering the majority of them are disingenuous and are clowns. Which is why I'd recommend to the Muslims that treat them with respect. This is how we should act anyway, from the Quran, Surah Furqan, Ayah 63. Treat them with kindness. And if they are being ignorant, if they are being arrogant, they're being rude, ignore them. Their life, their choice. However, if they are genuine, try and help them to the best of your ability. Try and help them. And to the Muslims, stay firm upon your religion and try your hardest not to fall into temptation. And if you do fall into temptation, repent to Allah sincerely, for Allah is the most forgiving and the most merciful. Arm yourself with knowledge, equip yourself with knowledge, study. From what you saw from one of the surveys, from one of the screenshots, you saw the things that affected the people that much they left Islam. So study that, research that, and that is this video done. Linked in the description is the full survey, which you can go and read, as well as the video I mentioned at the start by Asadullah Ali called 4 Lies Muslims Tell About Ex-Muslims, and it's a very good video and I think you should watch it. Anyway, we have reached the end of the video. Inshallah you have found it useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.